All right, let's talk about a data breach that hit one of the world's biggest car brands, Nissan. But as we're about to see, the real story here isn't some direct, all-out assault on a corporate giant. No, it's about something much more subtle and, frankly, something that's way more common in our super-connected world. Okay, let's get into it. I mean, think about it. We hand over our personal information to big companies all the time. Our names, our addresses, you name it. We just trust that they'll keep it locked down. But what happens when that trust gets shattered, not by the company you know, but by some other company you've never even heard of? So, in late 2023, Nissan put out a statement confirming that, yep, customer data had been compromised. It's the kind of headline we're all getting a little too used to seeing. But here's the twist. Nissan's own high-tech security systems didn't fail. The problem started somewhere else entirely. So if it wasn't a direct hit on Nissan, then who was it? This gets us right to the heart of what really happened, the actual weak spot. It turns out Nissan had hired a pretty well-known software company, Red Hat, to build a system for them. And that's where the hackers struck. They didn't even bother trying to get through Nissan's front door. They found a side entrance through one of their trusted partners. And that just raises a massive question, doesn't it? How does a hack at one place cause a total crisis for another? Well, it all comes down to a specific and pretty sneaky kind of cyber attack. And here's what it's called, a supply chain attack. It's actually a brilliant strategy if you think about it. Instead of taking on the big fish directly, attackers go hunting for the weakest link in the whole chain of businesses that work together. Could be a small vendor, a software supplier, any partner can become a doorway in. It's clever, and unfortunately for us, it's very, very effective. So let's just walk through how this played out. First, Nissan hires Red Hat to do a job. Perfectly normal business. Second, hackers break into Red Hat's servers and get access to all sorts of client data. And third, because Nissan's customer info was just sitting on those servers, it got swept up in the heist. A perfect and pretty scary example of a digital chain reaction. Okay, so we've covered the how. Now let's get into the so what. What was the real-world damage for Nissan and, more importantly, for its customers? The breach hit about 21,000 customers of one specific sales division. Now, that might not sound like millions, but let's be real. For every single one of those 21,000 people, this was a serious violation of their personal privacy. And if we look at exactly what was stolen, it's pretty revealing. We're talking full names, addresses, phone numbers, even what they'd bought. That's basically a perfect starter kit for targeted scams. The good news, though, the really critical financial stuff, credit card numbers and bank info, that was never on those servers, so it was safe. The takeaway is pretty clear. Privacy was definitely breached, but immediate financial theft wasn't the biggest worry. The breach itself is one thing, but how a company responds is a whole other story. Let's look at how things unfolded after the hack and the advice that was given out. This timeline is super interesting. The hack itself happens in late September. Red Hat figures it out and tells Nissan in early October. But the public doesn't hear a peep from Nissan until December. That gap, that 2-month delay, is often a really critical time when companies are scrambling to investigate and figure out what to do. So who is behind this? Well, the initial break-in at Red Hat is being blamed on a group called Crimson Collective. But then another notorious group, Shiny Hunters, jumped into the mix. They started posting samples of the stolen data online, probably to try and extort some cash or just to show off. It's a great example of how this stolen data can get passed around between criminal groups. Nissan's advice was pretty clear and absolutely necessary. With all that personal info out there, the biggest risk was phishing. Where criminals send you emails that look legit to trick you. Just imagine getting an email that says, "Hello, your name? About that recent service on your Nissan car model." It would look so convincing. So Nissan basically told everyone to be on high alert. This whole incident, when you boil it all down, really highlights one fundamental truth about security in the world we live in today. Let's zero in on the main takeaway. This says it all, doesn't it? Nissan could have the best cybersecurity team on the planet, but it just didn't matter. A weak spot in their supply chain, their software partner, became their weak spot. That is a powerful lesson for any company out there. And this is why this whole story matters to every single one of us, whether you drive a Nissan or not. The apps on your phone, the websites you visit, the services you use, they all rely on this massive, invisible web of other companies. A single vulnerability anywhere in that web can create a ripple that ends up right on your doorstep. So what's the bottom line for us? Well, besides being careful, it's a reminder that we have to think of our data as being part of a giant web, not locked away in a single box. When you sign up for a service, you're not just trusting that one company, you're trusting its entire network of partners. And that leads to this final, huge question. In this crazy interconnected world, who is ultimately responsible for protecting your data? Is it the brand you know, the partner you've never heard of? Or does knowing all this change the game and put the responsibility back on us? It's a complicated question, and there's definitely no easy answer.